Hi friends, good morning, good afternoon, or good night for all of you. Thanks for participating in this conference. I have the honor of your presence and I hope that my presentation is of value to you. During these months of pandemic, some of the most common problems in companies have become critical, and today more than ever, companies must avoid at all costs its consequences. The list of symptoms that is shown on the screen is only a compilation of what we see on a daily basis in our experience and that the pandemic has intensified. In addition to the health problems, the economic consequences of the lockdown, which in many countries will take a long time to recover, force companies to find new ways of operating to avoid all these obstacles that were seen as something we have to live with. It's clear that this crisis that we are experiencing requires effective and efficient companies that add value to all stakeholders to strengthen the chain of which we are all part. The volatility, uncertainty, and complexity to which we are exposed demand that we conduct ourselves with sustained teamwork to deliver the best value, regardless of the difficult times to come. The pandemic made it evident many things that only few people knew before. The only way to excel in an interconnected world, where borders practically do not exist, is to synergize and add real value in order to compete better and achieve the results we expect. Today, competition between supply chain is a reality. To take advantage of this, we have to foster new expertise that most companies don't have today. These skills make perfect sense when we see ourselves as a link in a great chain. We are not islands. The fact that we have operated as such for a long time and have obtained good results is not guarantee that in a different world we live in today, we will be able to sustain our results. If we could see ourselves as part of a great chain so as to open the way to a flow of new possibilities to take great advantage, it introduces us in a flow of opportunities that we can see to fully take advantage of them. To do this, we will have to take many precautions to cultivate good practices. For example, transparent, to share information, knowledge, best practices. Agile, because we seek simplicity. Digitized, with the help of the technology. Neutral in itself, must be used to serve these purposes. Resilient, to be flexible, adapt to new circumstances, and to detach ourselves from old habits. Solidarity, because today more than ever, not because of charity, we need to share knowledge, technology, and consolidate alliances. That is mandatory. And finally, the moments we live require that we be austere, careful with the resources remaining viable and sustainable in time. We can distill all of the above in a single word: synchronization. But what is synchronization? It's when we get two or more parts of our company to be in perfect coordination and correspondence. Synchronization is synonymous with fluidity, effectiveness, and harmony, which results in the best performance. Just like a symphony orchestra, only when many musicians can synchronize their participation, be in tune, it's possible to generate an exquisite result, a great experience. James Collins, an American writer, in his book Built to Last, makes a very interesting proposal for all managers of all companies in all lines of business. A great way on how to achieve synchronization in our companies. Clock building is a concept developed in the book Built to Last. Leading as a charismatic visionary, a genius with 1,000 helpers, is time-telling. But shaping a culture that can thrive far beyond any single leader is clock building. Collins points to the implications for how leaders spend their time. Rather than getting into the details of specific products and market strategies, clock building leaders focus their think time on organizational design. Instead of getting bogged down in the day-to-day decisions of running the business, they keep their heads up and focus on synchronizing the company around the goal and core values, internally and with third parties, to become an architect of leadership. Now that we have explained and established the importance of synchronization, if we are to correlate all parts of the company, it's fundamental to have technology to support it. But we have to be very careful. Of course, technology is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Just by deploying technology, we are not going to obtain those results we expect. The paradigm shift behind being transparent, agile, resilient, and others is what counts. And for that, it's convenient to lay the foundation on what is the fundamental dilemma that we are facing. This presentation is focused on the supply chain management. In a traditional supply chain operation, the basic assumption is that by transferring inventory from one link to another, we are doing the job to be done. On top of that, there is the ever-present volume discount policies, rebates, prices for reaching budgets, among others. Pushing inventory towards a downstream link apparently generates benefits, but in reality, they don't sustain sales over time. While we are used to making the chain operate under the push model, customers want to operate by nature under the pull model, and the lack of synchronization between these two behaviors is the root cause of most of the phenomena described at the beginning of my intervention. What can we do to change this? Dr. Eli Goldratt, an Israeli physicist, proposed more than 30 years ago a pull management model known as dynamic buffer management. Today, thousands of companies worldwide have benefited from this work model. His book, Isn't It Obvious?, describes the elements of the purpose work model. His work has inspired later practices like demand-driven MRP and others. I was lucky to work with Dr. Goldratt for almost 10 years. It all starts with the recognition that this is the main idea. Until the end customers has consumed our products, no one in the supply chain has actually sold. Very, very important, this point. And recognizing the above also requires us to lay the foundation on which a supply chain operates. The profit-generating engine is inventory turnover, and the performance indicator par excellence is the return on investment of that inventory. Dynamic buffer management operates under the following 6 steps. The first step of the proposed TOC solution is to keep or aggregate larger buffers stocks at the divergent point, where the stocks can be used to serve many different destinations, and use a pool replenishment mechanism triggered by sales at the end of the chain, the consumption point. Second, the stock buffer size is the maximum amount or quantity of inventory of an item held at the location in the supply chain to protect the throughput. Third, TOC takes a different perspective called throughput world in determining the direction and frequency of replenishment. It focuses on the additional throughput and return on inventory investment. Fourth, Buffer penetration for a given end item is an indication of the level of finished goods relative to the target buffer level for the item. If the level of finished goods for an item is 60%, for example, of the buffer target level, buffer penetration is 40% and is said to be in the yellow zone of the buffer. Fifth, the TOC logic dynamically measures the actual stock usage and readjusts the sizes of the stock buffer accordingly. By monitoring the SKU buffer penetration, we can identify whether the buffer size that we set for this SKU is doing its job. And finally, TOC logic established the use of traffic light colors as the unique priority system in the entire supply chain. Everyone is subordinated to that concept. The effectiveness of the priority system stems from the fact that it's robust and simple. Only 3 priority colors with a strict instruction of not being over-accurate and define which products among the same color should be replenished first. The mentioned concepts and 6 steps described so far is what we have developed in our Flow business solution. Fully integrated with Odoo Enterprise and operating in more than 20 companies in our region, Flow is a solution that provides answers to the 3 basic questions for the proper management of a supply chain: what, when, and how much to buy or produce. Let's see how it works. Very good. We started by showing that our solution has a dashboard completely designed to provide the organization's management with information of the most important aspects of the supply chain. In the first place, we have a block with suggested actions. In this section, the system recommends us what we should buy, what we should send to manufacture, and finally, what we should distribute or dispatch from our warehouses to downstream consumption points in the supply chain. If we access to the purchase recommendations, the system indicates grouped by warehouse, for example, or also grouped by product line, what we need to order from our suppliers today. In each of the decision-making reports, the system shows the inventory I have on site, the inventory that I have in transit, and the inventory that I have in production. In this case, in purchases, the inventory in production is not active, but we have an additional signal that we call qualified demand. Flow considers all these signals to suggest the correct quantity to be replenished. The final column shows the amounts for which we must create purchase orders today. In each product, we can also view the complete history of the inventory buffer. This graph indicates the behavior of the demand over time, the behavior of our replenishment over time, and the status of the daily inventory in contrast to the colors of the traffic light to allow us to assess how well we are managing these inventories. If the inventory graph oscillates in the yellow zone, it means that we are doing a good job with the inventory level and that we do not have excess or shortages in inventories. If we move frequently in the green or red zones, that will be a sign that we have a lot of inventory or very little inventory, placing us in an undesirable state. Upon returning to our dashboard, the suggested actions for production and distribution are based on the same management logic described in purchasing. When we operate according to these recommendations in all the links of the chain, we begin to generate waves of synchronization that eliminate distortions and problems, increasing the value for all parts. Let's go to the second block of signals. Now we have the warnings. These alerts allow us to focus on the most important aspects that require immediate attention. We have the list of out-of-stock products. These are items that we are surely losing sales. In the lower section, the system shows us an estimated calculation of the amount of dollars that we have lost up to date. On the right, the system shows us the list of products with excess inventory. This means that we have money invested in excess, and that is a huge waste of financial resources. Flow also converts this excess inventory into dollars to measure the size of this problem. Finally, we have the list of products that do not rotate or are not sold during a specific period of time. We have special parameters to define freezing threshold and to be able to identify products that are not being sold and their respective impact in money. If the company begins focusing on the proposed way of managing the inventories and does so systematically, it will certainly impact the company with a continuous improvement process of the portfolio that will generate great inventory availability, sales, and therefore a higher return on investment. In the third section, we have the two key performance indicators of the supply chain: inventory turns and return on investment. Here, Flow allows us to analyze this data in an aggregated way throughout the chain and also provides us with fine reports for each point of sale, or grouped by brand or grouped by product family. All of the above allows us to further refine our aim in day-to-day management of the inventory decisions. As a fourth section, we can see at the bottom of the screen a battery of graphs that complement our analysis and approach. I would also like to show you that we also have a series of supply chain execution and control reports. At this point, it's convenient to highlight the dynamic buffer management suggestions, DBM suggestions. It's here that Flow tells us which of the inventory buffers should be increased or reduced. These specialized algorithms suggest where we have to make adjustments to achieve the correct inventory in the right place and at the right time. It's convenient to finish by showing you that we have an extensive list of business intelligence reports that support the inventory management and provide a truly valuable experience for supply chain managers. To end this presentation, I would like to share some of the results that have been obtained by implementing this methodology. Expected cash flow increased more than 20%. Increase in inventory turnover by more than 50%. Sales growth by enjoying a better availability by more than 20%, with less than half the risk added to obtain an impact on profitability of more than double for every dollar invested. Okay, that's all, folks. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I remain attentive for any question. Have a good day. Thanks.